In the 10th episode of Luke Cage, Luke manages to survive his life-threatening surgery after being boiled alive in burning acid, and he still doesn't get a lollipop. Lots of things to cover in this week's episode of Luke Cage, so let's dive right in. This week's episode, the stakes were officially raised. Diamondback is working with Mariah, and they're doing everything in their power to turn all of Harlem against Luke Cage, and it seems like it's going to be working out real well, especially because Diamondback is going around town dressing up like Luke Cage and using his advanced weaponry to replicate his power. There's a scene where he actually punches a cop in this episode, and punches him so hard that it actually kills him and sends him flying about 20 feet or so. Although I have to admit, I started laughing out loud when he was walking away from the crime scene, just screaming, "I'm Luke Cage! I'm Luke Cage!" Just something about that was really funny and cheesy. In fact, I think the cheese factor was really turned up to 11 in this episode. Not just from all of the goofy moments from Luke Cage when he got out of his surgery and all those funny moments with Claire, but just Diamondback himself. You can tell this is a guy who just really loves being a villain. He's totally grooving on all of it. And in many ways, it makes it a little too cheesy. On the one hand, it makes it really entertaining. So Luke Cage is able to survive his surgery, the shrapnel is gone, bada bing, bada boom, he's back to kicking some ass. But he still wants some answers, and the first thing on his agenda is getting rid of all of the stuff that Dr. Bernstein has been working on. He actually ends up picking all this farm equipment up and just destroying his lab left and right. It's a great display of power, but it's also kind of sucky for this guy who's been sort of spending his entire life trying to transform people into super-powered beings. Although, with that power comes great responsibility, of course, and Luke is not going to allow anyone else to be cursed by this science, despite the fact that this stuff has been saving his life and the lives of many other people. But then again, that's sort of the whole shtick with Luke Cage. He just does not want to have superpowers, and frankly, at 10 episodes into the series, it's getting kind of old with him constantly bitching about it, but it looks like he's going to have to own up to it, at least at the very end of this episode when shit gets real. It's also officially confirmed that yes, indeed, Willis Stryker Diamondback is the brother of Luke Cage. However, the circumstances behind that are a little strange. Apparently, when Luke was younger, his father was a preacher, and his father also happened to be something of a sugar daddy, and his assistant on the side was his lover, and they had a child together, and that just so happened to be Willis Stryker, so they technically are related by blood. The thing is, though, Luke Cage's father completely resented Willis Stryker, and didn't even really care for his own son all that much, so you can definitely see why their whole family relationship was incredibly strained, but there's still a few more details that are missing from this puzzle. Also, I think it's really cool that Luke Cage's grandfather was one of the Tuskegee Airmen. That's pretty damn awesome. And then there's this one random-ass thing that happens where there's this one kid who gets picked up by the cops because they're trying to get some information on Luke Cage. And one of the guys that's interrogating this kid just so happened to be one of the partners of that one cop who was killed, or at least he worked directly with him, and he took it very seriously, and he just decided to start beating the crap out of this kid, straight up giving him a black eye, throwing him against the freaking glass. It's really hardcore, and of course, he gets in trouble for this, and Mariah decides to take advantage of this. She basically is telling all the people of Harlem that if it wasn't for Luke Cage, none of this stuff would have happened to this kid in the first place. She actually ends up bringing all of these people to Cottonmouth's club, now her club, with Diamondback actually hanging up in the wings. And at the very end of the episode, Luke Cage, Claire, and Misty Knight actually arrive at the club. Misty tries to arrest Diamondback, and that does not end up going well. She ends up getting shot multiple times. Luke Cage comes in, saves the day, jumps down, starts avoiding bullets, and that's the end of the episode. So what's the rundown on this week's episode of Luke Cage? This was a nice, cheesy episode that I really liked. There were just so many goofy moments, a lot of them being unintentional, and a lot of them having to do with some okay, not exactly great acting. I like Mike Colter. I think he's a really cool dude. I think he's doing a pretty decent job of playing Luke Cage, but every once in a while, he has these moments which just completely take me out of the episode. The scene where he just gets done with his surgery, and he pretends that he's feigning amnesia in front of Claire. Something about that just really rubbed me the wrong way, although I do think it was really slick how at the very very end of the episode when he's discussing what happened to his past and wondering if Reva was actually lying to him the entire time, how he says, I didn't love Reva, but I love the idea of her, and then he slowly but surely starts to get all close to Claire, only to take the car keys away from her. It's just really great seeing their relationship blossom if it is just only a giant freaking cheese sandwich. I'm Luke Cage! I'm Luke Cage! Really, that's all I have to say about this week's episode of Luke Cage. It was a lot of fun. We got to see some great displays of Luke Cage's power, not just surviving a surgery, but completely wrecking a barn and showing up as the big hero at the end of the episode. I can't wait to see if Harlem is going to turn against him this easily. I mean, they have to realize that something's not quite right. Not to mention, a lot of people are really smooth to Mariah's act. One of her competitors shows up at the end of the episode, and he happens to know that she's not really on the up and up. So I'm going to give this episode right here a 4 out of 5. I'm dropping it down because there were just a few moments which kind of took me out of the episode. That being said, this was still a really entertaining episode of Luke Cage, and so far I'm liking it almost as much as Daredevil, which I think is a pretty good thing because I didn't really care for Jessica Jones, but Luke Cage, I look forward to watching a new episode every single day, and we're almost done with the season, so I can't wait to see how they're going to wrap all that up. But that's my thoughts on this episode right here. Make sure to tell me what you guys thought about the 10th episode of Luke Cage in the comments section below. What did you think of this episode in general? Did you like it? Did you not like it? What do you think of the villain Diamondback? I think he's really over the top, but honestly, I think he adds a lot of flavor to the series. And what do you guys want to see from the rest of Luke Cage and the brand new Marvel shows in the future? Please tell me in the comments section below. You guys are awesome! Thank you for watching this review. Make sure to leave me a comment, like the video, and subscribe to the channel. Thank you guys again for watching. And as always, stay dandy, baby!